And day happens colorfully at Mescal Square, upholding national unity. Hello, many thanks for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour from the Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation. With the news, I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. Ethiopians from all walks of lives turned to Mescal Square today to mark Ethiopian Day with colorful assortments. Marking the day has also seen a panel discussion that brought together scholars, ministers, and President Sahle-Work Zewde to upholding Ethiopianism. The president underscored Ethiopianism remains to be held as a doctrine by African nations at large. Sintayo Tamrat has more.
Residents of Addis Ababa, together with their city mayor, senior government officials, celebrities and public figures, were among the participants of a high-spirited Ethiopian Day event at Mescal Square. Former patriots said Ethiopia is the name of proud people that never kneels for any evil power. Another part of the event was a panel discussion on Ethiopianism that has gathered politicians, top government officials, army members, and historians, among others. One of the panelists said Ethiopianism has been preserved with the greatest sacrifices of the lives of brave Ethiopian patriots.
No one has conferred to us our freedom. We preserved it with priceless sacrifice for our blood and life. That's why we remain forerunners to other states. It's for the sake of the furtherance of this Ethiopianism that our patriots in uniforms are paying their priceless lives and blood. All the disputes over good and our strong desire to fill the dam is part of a scaled-up version of Ethiopianism. This Ethiopianism cannot end somewhere. It instead transcends two generations and passes through non-stop process of state building. That's why we are witnessing today on the ground with all Ethiopian sentiments when the nation is amidst troubles. That's why we always say Ethiopia shall live forever.
Veteran politician Dima Negeo, who presented paper on the event, asserted that Ethiopianism is an ideology that goes beyond subjects like politics, religion, ethnicity, and language.
There are various identities which are revealed through ethnicity, language, religion, politics, and the like. But what ties all this up is Ethiopianism. This Ethiopianism needs to be fostered and reinforced by using advantage of what's currently happening in the country.
Addressing panelists, President Sahle-Work Zewde, for her part, lauded Ethiopianism is a doctrine held by African brothers, not only by Ethiopians.
Ethiopianism is what we inherited from our ancestors in past two generations. We have a multitude of values and essays that constitute our Ethiopianism. This has made us a great and strong people. Let me share today a great feeling of our African brothers. I have made official visits to many African nations. The leader of a certain nation who was also a freedom fighter once told me how Africans see Ethiopia as their country and how Ethiopianism is a part of their nationhood. The leader said once in a Congress meeting, a member raised an agenda that Somalia had invaded Ethiopia's Ogaden region. And before he finished his remarks, another member of the Congress reacted, questioning whether it was really Ogaden, which is a part of Ethiopia, which they consider a part of their nation. And the member went on saying Ethiopia is no more Ethiopia without Ogaden. So, this story asserts Ethiopianism is a doctrine held by African brothers as well. It's not a value monopolized by Ethiopians alone.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed tweeted, "The harmonized diversity, spirit of gallantry, unity and freedom that Ethiopians maintained have brought them together and entwined them in a strong bond." He emphasized that Ethiopianism is a strong value that has brought Ethiopians together despite the diverse cultures, languages, religions, and thoughts among them.
overall macro stability is by and large, I think, on a promising track, except inflation.
What is the solution for that? It's not a question of increasing the supply simply by production, but by doing proper intervention in the marketing system.
Financial liberalization is only reserved for Ethiopians or Ethiopians by birth. Liberalization has been kept as like selling the country.
We have seen recently what's happening in this economy. No one gave us a support. What I am hearing and what you are hearing today, the outsiders, the Westerners, rather are trying to kill us. I can use this term, killing us, okay, in all aspects. Even we didn't mention on the inflationary process, there might be some sabotaging behind it, coming from multinational corporations, okay? It is only when we are strong in our economic base, led by Ethiopians, that we can fight and that we can stand them. If you are dependent on them, you will die eventually.
Some Western and European countries exhibited meddling in the internal affairs of Ethiopia while the nation is undertaking law enforcement operation against TPLF terrorist group. Some Western and European countries are accepting TPLF's defamations and disinformation about the unreal facts of what is going on in the states of Amhara and Afar. Talking to ETV English, scholars said some Western countries are busy to pressurize the incumbent by flaming political conspiracies across the country. Haptamu Ashagri presents his review.
Well, let's bring you some breaking news now out of Ethiopia's Tigray region. A ceasefire between government forces and rebels has been agreed to in the capital, Mekelle.
In collaboration with Amnesty International, exposed the horror of a massacre perpetrated by Ethiopian soldiers in the mountains of the Tigray region. Now CNN has obtained and verified new images confirming the identity of the...
Since last November, the government of Ethiopia has been trying to restore constitutional order across the Tigray regional state. Amidst of its interventions on the renegade group, the incumbent has faced lots of challenges from within and outside directions, on which is the meddling of Western governments in the internal affairs of Ethiopia. During the course of the law enforcement operation in Tigray region, Western countries have worked hard to pressurize the incumbent by flaming political conspiracy across the country. After the TPLF brutal attack in the northern command of Ethiopian National Defense Force that has been residing over the past 3 decades in the state of Tigray, Ethiopia has never seen any condemnation from a single foreign country. In an exclusive interview with ETV English, a scholar and independent journalist said as follows.
If the US government has altered its approach, then it could be a good sign. Otherwise, if it is a kind of a continuation of what they were attempting in the previous time, then we consider it as wrong, because the Ethiopian government has been repetitively telling them that it's operating the law enforcement operation in the northern Ethiopia. And the TPLF has been trying to destabilize the country, and they are aware of it, they know it. But repetitively, they are trying to, subjugate the Ethiopian government.
TPLF had committed several human rights violations, committed atrocities against the entire population of Ethiopia, the entire Ethiopian population, but it went beyond that. It served as the bulwark of the Western powers in their doing their dirty jobs in Somalia, for example, and in South Sudan, destabilizing these countries and doing their dirty job.
To alleviate such unnecessary foreign intervention, Worku highlighted solidifying bilateral relations with other sovereign nations instrumental. Some Western governments go beyond the limit by rejecting international laws and norms. After the law enforcement operation and the unilateral ceasefire agreement made by the federal government, the TPLF gangs committed various atrocities The killing of innocent civilians, displacements, mass looting, war aggression in state of Afar and Amhara. The rest of the world, except few countries, never ready to blame the TPLF gangs.
They killed a lot of children in the Afar region that they are destabilizing, for instance, Amhara areas, and occupying the UN-registered site, this Lalibela, and so forth. All these things deserve condemnation, but they did not.
The Western powers are known to ignore whatever human rights violations, whatever atrocities are committed by any forces, as long as these forces are on their side or their allies. That is documented very well throughout the 27 years that TPLF dominated the Ethiopian central government. Throughout these 27 years.
According to Umar, some foreign countries have exhibited stretching hands into neighboring countries to orchestrate political conspiracy against Ethiopia.
What I see happening in Khartoum, in the politics of Sudan recently, is it is becoming a weapon of the US government because it happens to be next door to Ethiopia, and it happens to be to have a borderline, very strategic borderline, that would give a lifeline to TPLF if that borderline happens to open for TPLF.
Every sovereign nation has its own national interest. This national interest may have a negative energy for those developing nations like Ethiopia. Cementing national unity, solidarity and togetherness is an amicable solution to control this negative energy.
Since last November, the government of Ethiopia has been trying to restore constitutional order across the Tigray regional state. Amidst of its interventions on the renegade group, the incumbent has faced lots of challenges from within and outside the nation, of which is the irresponsible spread of disinformation and misinformation about the genuine law enforcement operation in Tigray regional state. Here with us is Samuel Getachew through the phone to tell us his perspectives over the matter. Welcome and thank you very much for your time, Mr. Samuel.
Very welcome.
Let me begin by asking you this, Mr. Samuel. How is your assessment on foreign media outlets' broadcastings on Ethiopia's issues in the past months? How did you find them when it comes to reporting Ethiopian cases?
I think there's still work to do, but all sides need to open up, including the Ethiopian side. So the Western media, which I'm a part of, will be able to cover Ethiopia fully. Some of the challenge we do have currently is we have no access to some of the main actors in governments, and I hope they will open up and we are able to represent the Ethiopian side fully and completely, because Ethiopia is a proud nation, an independent nation. Again, it's been said before, it's an African pride, the only independent nation in the continent, and it needs to, I think, live up to its potential. And I think the Western media really wants to be able to cover Ethiopia fully. And I hope the government will open up and tell their side of the story. I'm a part of the Western media, and some of the challenge we do have currently is that some of the main actors in governments are not, able to open up to us. But we're able to, I am very happy to be able to hear the Ethiopian side and reflect, because at the end we are Ethiopians and we want to see Ethiopia become more prosperous than it is at the moment.
All right, Mr. Samuel, how about your reflection on their reporting versus the core principles of journalism? Do they match?
Well, it's also, if you go to the Western media, in Western nations, the media haven't lived up to their potential. Some of the profession that has been attacked, that continues to be attacked on social media, including social media, is journalism. I came from Canada. I'm an Ethiopian, a proud Ethiopian. But even when I lived in Canada, some of the profession that was really being affected by, even budget cuts, layoffs, are journalism. There are many, many people who do feel they want the position to be prosperous, and they want to be able to use their power to tell the side of Ethiopia in my circumstances. And I hope, again, the journalism profession is the least paid profession in the world. But, many of us continue to do the kind of work we want to do, so we were able to do public service to what we care. Many of us care about Ethiopia's potential, Ethiopia's future, and I hope we're able to do more, and we are able to do and do what is expected of us, not just as journalists, but also citizens. And I hope people will give us the benefit of the doubt. There are many, many people, including my colleagues, who care about Ethiopia so much. And I do care about Ethiopia so much. If I didn't care about Ethiopia, I would have gotten into business instead of journalism. And I hope people will give us second chances in the years to come.
All right. Independent journalist Samuel Gitacho, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Ethiopia had a discussion today at his office with Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix, United Nations Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations. On this occasion, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister expressed the significant role of the Ethiopian peacekeeping force in the UN and raised the long-standing history of Ethiopia's peacekeeping mission. He expressed Ethiopia's disappointment at the recent letter sent by Senator Bob Mendes to the Secretary General of the United Nations, which failed to portray the contribution of Ethiopian peacekeeping forces who are serving to maintain peace and security under the blue helmet. Mr. Demeke finally affirmed Ethiopia's continued support to the UN. Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix, for his part, appreciated the role of Ethiopia in the UN peacekeeping mission and expressed interest to extend the long-standing relations between the UN peacekeeping missions with Ethiopia in the future. Welcome back. Ethiopian Airlines has responded to the wrong article appeared in Sudan news agency SUNA regarding shipment of weapons to Sudan. SUNA reported on Sunday the shipment is being investigated by a committee tasked with dismantling the government of former President Omar al-Bashir, who was toppled in April 2019 after a popular uprising. The weapons had arrived in Ethiopia from Moscow in May 2019, the committee found. According to Ethiopian Airlines, the shipment of weapons to Sudan is illegal and commercial transportation of hunting guns with all proper documents of the shipper and the consignee. Ethiopian Airlines says all the documentation that proves the legality of the shipment, including a letter from Sudanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, are provided and proved. Ethiopian Ministry of Health has received its first dispatch of 108,000 doses of vaccine through Africa CDC. These shipments are said to have pivotal contribution to address vaccine for the population in Ethiopia. Kasahun Jani reports.
The African Union AU through the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Africa CDC has worked with the African Vaccine Acquisition Trust to secure 12,000 doses of the Johnson & Johnson single-shot COVID-19 vaccine for the African Union Commission staff, AU embassy staff and their dependents. Dr. Liata Dessa, Ethiopian Minister of Health, received first shipment of 108,000 doses and acknowledges various principal partners, including WHO.
I would like to say first, I'm extremely pleased today to be here to receive the first tranche of the 3 million Johnson & Johnson doses that Ethiopia is procuring through the AVAT mechanism by Africa Union and Africa CDC and Afrexim Bank, financed by the support of the World Bank. today's additional doses of vaccines for Ethiopia will really play a huge role in accelerating our efforts to vaccinate our population, especially the priority population that's vulnerable in this pandemic.
The minister said the vaccine is very critical to Ethiopia, as it could help to vaccine more than 60% of the population, adding it could help to boost the health system to be sturdy.
We mitigate and continue our efforts to mitigate this COVID-19 pandemic. As was mentioned by our previous speakers, for the efforts to really increase the vaccine access and vaccine equity, the Africa Union and Africa CDC have established this AVAT mechanism, or the Africa Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, that has been working hard to, with a bold vision of achieving up to 60% of the continent to be vaccinated in a short time, in collaboration with many partners. And we are really pleased that this work has already started in many countries, and now Ethiopia is also part of this initiative. And we have been, of course, collaborating with the Africa CDC in many platforms in this fight against the pandemic since the pandemic initiated, and even before that, in really having a strong public health response system in the country. And I would like to acknowledge and appreciate the partnership we have with the Africa CDC and the Africa Union in terms of enhancing our health system resilience. And a lot of collaborations have been there with our Ethiopian Public Health Institute and the Ministry of Health overall in the health system. And we do hope this will continue to grow. And this ABAT platform is not just only about acquisition of vaccines, through procurement systems, but also is looking at strongly to collaborate with different partners in enhancing local manufacturing in the continent.
During the occasion, Africa CDC Director Dr. John welcomed the arrival of the vaccines and handed over the shipments alongside the Ethiopian Minister of Health. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine was selected for this first pool procurement for a single shot vaccine, which could make it easier and cheaper to administer.
The 27th Ethio-Djibouti Joint Border Administrators and Commissioners meeting is underway at Arta town of Djibouti. The meeting mainly focused on major areas comprising border trade and security, immigration and movement of peoples, human trafficking and irregular migration, transport, customs and illicit trade, human and animal health, as well as issues of agriculture and livestock. During the meeting, the two sides vowed to continue their engagement to curb the illicit activities across their shared border and ensure the efficient and effective movement of goods and people across the Ethio-Djibouti corridor. And finally, to a story from across Africa. The fate of Guinea's President Alpha Condé is unclear after an unverified video showed him surrounded by soldiers who said they had seized power. They appeared on national TV claiming to have dissolved the government. However, the Defense Ministry said the attempted takeover had been thwarted by the Presidential Guard. This follows hours of heavy gunfire near the presidential palace in the capital, Conakry. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the African Union have condemned the apparent coup and demanded the immediate release of President Condé. Numerous reports say the coup was led by an elite unit headed by a former French legionnaire, Lieutenant Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya. You're watching Addis News Hour, a quick reminder of the day's headlines. Ethiopian Day happens colorfully at Mescal Square, upholding national unity.